I will pick my targets and assassinate them lyrically. I will bring them out into the town square, hook them to the pillory and leave them there. And Hillary, I'll see you there. Nah, Hillary, I'll see you there. You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your hands. No, I play civil when you wouldn't listen to 100,000 dead. And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. So I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen. Welcome to the fantasy of rhetoric. And welcome to the last of the free speech while we can get it. And I promise you can get it. All you corporate Democrats and second wave Confederates, GOP illusionists and neo-Nazi bureaucrats. And Stephen fucking Miller, I will see you in the aftermath. When all the laws are dust, there's just moral justice after that. And I would hunt you through the wasteland if it comes to that. Just so I could rub you in the dirt like a cheap human Brillo pad. I could sleep fine when our beds are burning, Stephen, but I'll turn around and run into the blaze to get my pillow back. Cause as long as I can lay my head down, I can live with that. I can deal with a little ash. Cause I could feel like a little of the old me burn with the bed and the rest of my past. The old world where we all lived and we can't get back. The old world where you didn't give and you'd still get back. Where you could rake in 12 billion and give none back. Well, those days are behind us. The virus will kill all of that. Your wealth is behind us and kindness is meant for the past. Our leaders would bind us and starve us and call it a fast. A sacrament meant for their God that they garnish in cash. They feed it the poor by the hundreds, that's all that it asks. Its hunger is legion and people in need are all it will have. Our only chance is to starve it and watch as it turns on them. Can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your hands. You can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your hands.
Who are these people?
This is called the Oil Baron Rescue Plan. It couldn't have been me, sir. I was front row in my AOC t-shirt, foie gras sucking on a press release, sir. My head down, fourth shot, good little sheep, sir. Sit down, sweetie. The adults are gonna speak first. They trust the science and they're terrified of research. Here to thank our healthcare heroes they've been feeding to the burnout, feet first. Until suddenly they dip mid-shift, take a header off a bridge. Such a shame, they were really such a sweet nurse. Now they'll never get the card and the cold slice of pizza meant to thank them for their teamwork. Now they'll never get the baggie full of Chex Mix, which would be the one reward they'd see for all the moms they had to intubate, and countless cries of grief since we've been haunted by the specter of the C word. Now all the applause for our healthcare heroes rings a very hollow note because we played it out like Freebird. See, add the ones and zeros, and our fragile checks and balances are checks for all the wealthy who have such unholy talents that we think it's patriotic that we've all got zero balances, and re-elect Pelosi so she'll face our toughest challenges, which is analogous to water for a drowning man. Nancy disregards our impoverished with a spiteful and dismissive little waving of her withered hand, because 500,000 freezing on the streets is Biden's winter plan. And I bet you swore they told you you were voting for a different man. But really all you wanted was a different man. It didn't make a fucking difference if he finishes the previous inhabitants' agenda and starts auctioning protected land. Biden's born to leap at any war a donor's check demands. And it turns out that you can't cure greed once it infects a man. Once they lose respect for human life and focus all their fucking efforts on the oil baron rescue plan. Honey, what are we to Hecuba or Hecuba to us that if she's starving, we should give a damn? Why should we be moved to tears if someone isn't eating? We won't even recognize that food is essential to our being. It's just us in fucking Israel who will not guarantee that food's a basic human right. Because starvation is our favorite tool of genocide disguised as sanctioned democratic healing. See, that's me in the corner, losing my religion, gouging out my eyes, and then dancing on the ceiling. And Jesus fucking Christ, what a feeling. That was my dryer, ladies and gentlemen.
Nice. Well,
right on the buzzer.
Nice.
Oh God, that was beautiful.
I was going to say that Lionel Richie would probably agree with you too, dancing on the ceiling, and we're going back to 80s and dating ourselves as Gen Xers.
Who are these people?
Here it is.
Yeah. American Desires. Man. Oh, here we go.
I don't mean to sound alarmist, but most of what they let you read is garbage. Most of it's designed to warp our minds until subconsciously you find you'll take the time to lick their boots free of grime and wipe their minds free of tarnish. Oil is the centerpiece, a body count of millions is the garnish. So how's it feel to know we funded every carcass? That every year our taxes pay for carpet bombing Gaza under shroud of darkness? That we spend enough a year to house and feed each homeless person in the streets on turning families in apartment buildings in the Middle East to bloody craters full of charred garments? And our media is silent at best. At worst, they can find it in themselves to call war crimes clashes and label children burned to ashes terrorists who played a stupid game and reaped the harvest. And every time we try to paint the truth, the news sends all their slugs to suck off all the varnish and distort it into something harmless. The media will hang you by your feet until you're half asleep. So yes, I'm here to set you free. But freedom won't be sweet because you'll fall 1,000 feet when I come cut you out your harness. They say those who dream the deepest fall the farthest. They also say that home is where the heart is. But if home for you is Gaza, Netanyahu's got you painted as a target. Perhaps it's not the impact, but it's what you see when falling that will hit the hardest. Maybe it's the sound of all those children crying out in those apartments that will hit the hardest. Maybe all those little bodies scattered in the dirt will hit the hardest. Maybe seeing human lives assigned such little worth will hit the hardest. Maybe it's the knowledge that you're paying for the darkest of atrocities committed on this earth that will hit the hardest. Maybe it's the knowledge that we give 10 million a day to the oppressors who possess the kind of Medicare you'll die in debt before you see that's going to hit the hardest. Maybe then you'll see you've always had more in common with the commoners whose slaughter we fund every day in Gaza than your senators or bosses. Maybe then you'll see our country never had a conscience. Maybe then the retroactive guilt will make you nauseous. Maybe what hits harder than the impact is the act of being conscious, of knowing your complicity and helplessness to try and stop the bloody deeds of Congress. That no matter who's in office, America preserves its foreign interests by whatever means its greed demands, however monstrous. We'll always need a place to train our Contras. And Biden's got a backup plan should harm befall the Holy Land. Wipe it off the map, he'll draw it back on with an iron hand. He demands an Israel or reasonable effigy to exercise democracy and colonize the Middle East, regardless of the human cost or phosphorus atrocities, all bought and paid with money. They rerouted out the budget for the non-essential things like ever making Flint's water clean. Maybe what hits hardest is the day you see this country for its actual priorities and never more no honest peace attempting sleep. Maybe then you'll look at politicians making speeches like a blood-encrusted beast espousing destiny to empty seats and fellow leeches. As the gauntlet of democracy extends its brutal reach, like a giant wave of trash come to crash on foreign beaches, maybe build a base, throw a flag down, and heavily pollute the region. Rape your ecosystems, gut your fauna, and congratulate you on your new allegiance. Oops, we mean alliance. This is something mutual unless you're non-compliant. We've stolen something crucial on which you can be reliant. So maybe what hits hardest is the centrist saying both sides need to stop the violence. Those would be the very same centrists saying we should all accept police brutality, who hem and haw and clutch their fucking pearls and spend their time condemning riots. But very soon will come the day the centrists all get censored like the rest of us, and pious as they'll try to be, they won't stay quiet. But they'll just end up shouting in the void that they were all so quick to render us subscribers, and it will be too late to light the fires. So far away tonight, there burn the spires of a region set ablaze for which you've paid for every pyre, which is why your checks weren't all $600 higher. Call it foreign interests or American desires.
Who are these people?
This is Sunday Morning 40. We're 40 Sunday mornings out from normal, and the world is not the same. You said you waited for a warning, but the warning never came. Don't shine a light in my face. See, Nancy's gonna cut you a check too late. 2 years after your funeral's paid, 2 years after the grave, she'll be a little stronger for all of those dollars she saved. Watching you wake, watching you cling to your family, slipping away. Watch her do nothing but pray. Watch her condemn the Republicans, take them to brunch, and then shrug it away. Now watch us be outraged half of a day, then pick a new hero to face our leaders and think they could beat them, playing the game they played since Pelosi had real human blood in her veins. They're all one and the same, sold off stocks, and they all maintain that the risk was benign and the virus was tame. Flash forward in 40 Sunday mornings, fade 250,000 people in its wake, and a cruise ship sailed today. So motherfucker, don't shine a light in my face. No. Wait. We're 40 Sunday mornings out from normal, and the world is not the same. You said you waited for a warning, but the warning never came. Don't shine a light in my face. You said you waited for a warning, but the warning never. And that's Sunday Morning 40.
No, Indy Left, what is happening here?
To check out IndependentLeft.news.
The Indie News Network.
Indie Left News.
Oh, hey, Indie Left.
IndependentLeft.news. Great work.
Indie Left News.
IndependentLeft.news.
Independent Left News.
Shout out to Independent Left News. Shout out.
Oh, what's up, Independent Left?
Friends show.
Thank you, IndependentLeft.news.
The INN, Indy, you're wonderful.
I think Indy was onto something.
Independent News Network, Indie News. Yeah. What's up, Indy, over on Rockfin?
Independent News Network, also known as INN.
Indie Left News.
I don't know if I would have made it through that 3 weeks without Indy, honestly.
No, I was just going to ask Indy.
A huge thank you and shout out to Indie Left.
No, you know what we're doing? We're world building, Indie.
Indie Left News.
You were doing the INN recruiting.
Indie News.
Independent Left News.
Shout out to Independent Left News.
Check out Independent Left News.
at Kennedy News.
I see Indy's in the chat. Hi, Indy. Okay, great. Bye.
Bye. No, bye. No, bye. It's Sabby. Come on. No, bye. Sabby was on earlier. Hi, Sabby. She's watching. I got Reef over here. Hi. Hi. This is Indy. If you can't see me because you're listening on a podcast. Yeah, we have a podcast too. So everybody go check us out over on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. You can download and subscribe to How Do We Miss That? So by all means, welcome to How Do We Miss That? Yay, it's Sunday night. It's Reef and Indy. And it is. Like Angel says, and I'll put that up. Hi, fuckers. Angel Rivera, the handsome cynic. He has Angel in the afternoons on INN on Friday afternoons. He had a great show with Karen Sage, who was his guest on Friday. By all means, check that out, 7 o'clock Friday Eastern Time. Wow, it's been a hell of a week, and I'm not going to do a INN commercial yet. I might do one later. We'll see. But, my God, wow, we were so cranking last week with. It started slow, and then we had a bunch of live streams, and then we did a live show Sunday night, our first in a while, and everything's back in swing. We did Nobody Wants to Work Anymore live. Me and the himbo who may be here right now, the Canadian Crusher, and I just made that nickname up. So, Reef sitting there plugged in. I've got stuff queued up. We're going to talk about a few things. So let me cut to our thumbnail and we can kind of see what that looks like. Hey, look at that. We got a couple of handsome devils out there. I learned something today that I had no idea. Now, oh goodness gracious. Roger Waters, who's on that photo to the right, did you know that man is 80 years old? And we're going to get into Roger Waters. 80 years old. Absolutely freaking remarkable. I mean, amazing. And then, of course, on the left is the legendary Julian Assange, free Julian Assange. We're going to talk about some Julian stuff first. Julian. I'm surprised the soundboard isn't queued up. We're also going to feature a couple of stories about him. Article about, from the Dissenter from Chip Gibbons. And then we're going to get into a bunch of things. We have 4 stories lined up, and then we're going to switch off, just like we did last week. I thought that worked pretty well, was we're going to switch off to boats at midnight. We may go a little bit earlier, but we're going to switch streams, and there'll be a new live stream at midnight Eastern, and then we'll watch the react and the funny stuff, boats smashing into other boats. So getting into, how you doing, man? You can, other than wave, you can actually speak, Mr. Mute over there. Look at that nice INN 3D printed thing behind his head. That's really cool. At Stoner Boulevard. He does live at Stoner Boulevard, and you'll see Bong Cam likely throughout the street, throughout the episode. That's what I'm turning on now. You're also a little low on the volume side. You might have to turn your mic up a little bit.
How about now?
No, you're not to me at least. Maybe there you go. Now we're even. All right, so let's get into Julian news, because there was some Julian news, and I want to also shout out some people that are still carrying the torch like we are every week. And it's important to keep this story alive and to continue to fight for Julian Assange. He can't fight for himself locked in a hole in Belmarsh. There's a lot of people out there doing it. And we say, as always, free Julian Assange as always. So the Don't Extradite Assange campaign, which has been around for a long time, I believe they actually arranged the Assange DAO. They have now changed their handle, and this makes me a little sad, actually. The Indie Media Awards is logged in right now to Instagram, so I'll be the 50th like on that. But I'm surprised thank you. I'm surprised that only 50 people have liked it. But Free Assange News, at Free Assange News, is now what the page and the organization will be called moving forward. Rather than don't extradite Assange, it's free Julian Assange, which makes a whole lot of sense. It's a whole lot easier. And it just kind of fits. So I'm kind of surprised they're amplifying their international efforts. The sad thing is, and the reason why I'm sad about it is because they probably know that it's inevitable at this point that he will be extradited. So to keep the handle of don't extradite him when that's inevitable, I don't think that is, necessarily giving up to a point. It's just shifting where the focus is going to be from freeing him to, from extraditing to free. Max RJ, yes, that is correct. Stella Assange has a YouTube channel. She also has a Substack now as well. She's publishing stuff to Substack. I don't have to. They're gonna have to pay me royalties after a while. So I did have one.
Julian.
Thank you. I did have one article, and this happened a few weeks ago, but I didn't talk about it because we were off, and I thought that it was something that was important to mention, which was that we had a strongly worded letter sent to, the president and or the Justice Department from a bipartisan group of Congress people. What this represents as Chip Gibbons at the Dissenter, that is Kevin Gostola's newsletter. Subscribe to that. I'm a paid subscriber. He's actually offering the entire month of December for free. He sent an email out to his paid subs that he's offering everything, unlock all his new content for free all month. So please, by all means, go to thedissenter.org and subscribe. Chip Gibbons, bipartisan group of Congress members to Biden who says don't extradite Julian Assange. Hey, how about that? And it was led by Jim McGovern, Massachusetts, and Thomas Massie from Kentucky, who they all suck, but he's turning out to be more principled than just about all of them when it comes to several things, including the recent vote about anti-Semitism versus anti-Zionism, and he was one of the lone people to stand up and courageously and correctly state that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, and he could not vote for the measure, though there were a lot of good things that he agreed with that were in the measure. That was really the whole point of it. So what Chip was saying is that 16 members of the Congress sent a letter, right? You had Jim McGovern and Thomas Massie, like they said. It marks the second time this year that members of Congress have signed a joint letter to the Biden administration urging them to end the prosecution. Right. Urging. Whenever you say urging, it's toothless. Like, we're urging you. Okay. Yeah, thanks. It's meaningless.
At least it's not urgent.
All right. But on press freedom grounds, and as the first bipartisan and bicameral letter, it represents the largest congressional effort, and it's like a little bit building here and there. Now, who also signed off on it? I'm not terribly thrilled with a couple of these names, but you're going to need a lot of them. Paul Gosar is the one I don't like at all. Paul Gosar is a straight-up Nazi and has admitted so, and his entire family literally wrote a letter to the people of Arizona saying, don't vote for this guy because he's a Nazi. And we're not even like sugarcoating it. Like literally likes to get dressed up in the Nazi stuff. Marjorie Taylor Greene, whatever, she's the Republican AOC who also, by the way, signed off on this. You have Jamal Bowman and Rashida Tlaib and Chuy Garcia and Rand Paul. So a lot of the people who usually kind of, Chuy Garcia.
Sounds like a Ben and Jerry's flavor.
He used to be the Chicago alderman or a Chicago mayor. Kit.
Sure.
Shout out to Kit at Hardlands. He was excited when Chuy went into Congress, and man, Chuy has just bent the knee, left, right, sideways, and straight down, over and over. Alderman, according to Dr. Nick Riviera. Thank you, Dr. Nick. Yes, Chuy was an alderman. So, and now he is a congressman who, I don't remember whose seat he had. I think it might have been, what's her name? Marie Newman. possibly he took over for Newman. Greg Kasser, he's also a quote-unquote progressive. Matt Rosendale, I'm not familiar with. I'm surprised that I don't see Matt Gaetz on here. I would think that he would be all about this, but that kind of surprised me that I didn't see. Right? Yeah. Free Assange. Yeah. Why don't we get Mike Judge to do that? Oh my God. We've got to get him to do a whole thing about that. So the letter signatories were largely drawn from the Congressional Progressive Caucus and the Libertarian or MAGA wing of the Republican Party. Okay. Well, of course, because anyone in the corporate side and in the intel side, he exposed all of their secrets and let out their dirty laundry and made them all look like schmucks over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and they're all still subservient to either the Clintons or the Bushes. So that's, and the people who were within the Bush administration. So, although such a coalition may defy, yes, and Henry Kissinger, of course, who could forget Henry Kissinger, who is pleading the fifth, but yeah, sorry, man, you're guilty.
Don't be rude.
Yeah. Although such a coalition may defy conventional political wisdom, similar coalitions between congressional progressive and libertarians have emerged in recent memory around efforts to rein in surveillance state or reassert Congress's war powers. I would not call, Gosser's a MAGA. I guess that's what, what's his name is, the guy from Rosendale from Montana, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Well, yes, they are the people who have been pushed at, who are most suspicious of what they call the deep state or, of the intel community and the influence of the intel community. And as we keep having proven out week after week after week, the censorship industrial complex.
You're right. They're against it unless it works for them, and then they're fine.
Right now we've got the CTI League files, which, by the way, I was going to do a thing about that. I'll probably cover that next week. Whitney Webb did a whole thing about how that's nice, Mikey, that you caught on to this part, but it's actually much bigger than that. And we wrote about this 3 years ago, but I'm glad that you're bringing it to light. And here's more info. So Whitney was trying to be nice, but of course Whitney is amazing, and she's she knows how to dunk on people without even trying. So on April 11th, which was on the anniversary of Assange's arrest and expulsion from the Ecuadorian embassy, seven Democrats sent a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland. And Misty was in Washington, D.C., standing in front of Merrick Garland's office that day, speaking. Letter was initiated by Rashida, who had tweeted 4 years ago today, Julian was arrested for publishing the truth. So they recognize it. I don't think they're being loud enough. I think that it gets old after a while, but at least expose. Let's talk about what they did, and why he's there. And it's not just that he published the truth. It's about whom and why. And it's a little bit more than just that he published the truth, because a lot of people publish the truth and they don't end up in Belmarsh in a hole. So all seven of the signatories were from an informal grouping within the left wing, quote unquote, of the CPC, often referred to as the Squad. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, well, I guess they're as left as it gets right now, and it probably isn't going to get any further left because they're going to spend $100 million to make sure they don't go any further left and further push back to the right. I'm guessing that's already started to happen.
There's always the macro, and then there's the micro.
Oh, her bank account's a macro. Her fundraising bank account. Additionally, following an October oversight hearing with Merrick Garland that was held up by the House Judiciary Committee, Bush sent a follow-up letter, Corey, in addition to asking questions around mass incarceration, the death penalty, and the treatment of Stop Cop City protesters. She even raised the matter of his extradition. He's currently detained in Belmarsh's high security prison, of course, in London, as the U.S. seeks to extradite him for a trial on Espionage Act charges, which is crazy in itself. Each of the charges against him stem from his role as WikiLeaks editor-in-chief. He's a publisher.
Yeah, I love how every Assange article has to explain like the entire story every time.
Well, it has
like
to.
Every
because,
Spider-Man movie has to go through a Spider-Man origin.
Well, it has to because there's so many people. Look, it's been spun so many times, and not just that, but the shitlibs turn and they decide to twist it every single time and use the wrong story that they heard from XYZ. And unless you continue, God, it feels like the Passover story. We have to continue to tell this story every year so that our ancestors will know exactly what happened to Julian. Yes, Julian. So in 2010 and 2011, the media organization published classified information as about the U.S. government's wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, military prison at Gitmo, and the backroom dealings of the State Department. All of this was published while U.S. Army whistleblower Chelsea Manning, who was the source of the documents, of course, was one of a number of whistleblowers charged under the Espionage Act under President Barack Obama. Yep.
No, so, I already went away from that.
The Assange indictment.
Thanks, Obama.
Yeah, thanks. Pursued under, of course, President Donald Trump. It's kind of funny that Trump supporters now want to see Assange freed when Trump was the one that actually went after Assange, but that I digress. Hey, if they turn it around, great. And I think that they always wanted to see him free Assange, honestly. I think that from the day that he was there, I disagree with that. So, yeah, first time publisher was ever charged under the Espionage Act. At the Belmarsh trial, or at the Old Bailey trial that Richard Medhurst and Kevin Gosztola, who is the publisher of the Dissenter, covered, in the gallery on a daily basis, and then came out and did live stream reports every day. It was like 14 days long. Daniel Ellsberg, Nils Melzer, there were tons of people that testified that said that, the U.S. prison system, and they're going to get to this, I'm sure, here, but, man, in spite of Obama's unprecedented use of the Espionage Act to silence journalists, sources, and whistleblowers, and its open antipathy for Assange and WikiLeaks, because they made him look like a dumbass a ton, the Obama administration balked at the prospects of formally indicting Assange under the Espionage Act. They feared the wide-ranging ramifications for press freedom of a successful prosecution under that act, also by the fact that he's not an American. They're bringing him in from foreign soil because they don't like what he published about us. How the hell do you do that? The Trump administration, of course.
Just like this.
Well, we know the Trump administration, guided by Attorney General Jefferson Beauregard Sessions and CIA Director Mike fuck you, we lie, we cheat, we steal Pompeo, reversed course. Both officials escalated. An
interesting middle name.
Well, yeah, he is a we lie cheat. He is the liar, cheater, and thief for sure. And he was former Secretary of State, former CIA director. Both officials escalated U.S. security agencies' extra-legal activities, that's kind, against Assange, and brought the unprecedented indictment. So, quote, we believe the Department of Justice acted correctly in 2013 during your vice presidency when it declined to pursue charges against Mr. Assange. This is from the letter now. For publishing the classified documents because it recognized that the prosecution would set a dangerous precedent. We note that the 1917 Espionage Act was ostensibly intended to punish and imprison government employees and contractors for providing or selling state secrets to enemy governments, not to punish journalists and whistleblowers for attempting to inform the public about serious issues that some U.S. government officials might prefer to keep secret, especially if it might land some of those U.S. officials in jail, by the way, they don't add.
Which is why they tried to tie Assange to both China and Russia all the time.
Yep.
Like,
well, on top of the fact that they've secretly probably classified him as a terrorist in order to put the charges that they have put against him and the level of surveillance against the people who he was with, because it's the only way to justify it. We are aware that the Assange case has been cited by officials of the People's Republic of China, quote, right? China to claim that the U.S. is hypocritical when it comes to its purported support for media freedom. We are also well aware that should the U.S. extradition and prosecution go forward, there is a significant risk that our bilateral relationship with Australia will be badly damaged, unquote. Yeah, right.
You mean something like a nuclear submarine that has, Australian U.S. Navy, Australian Navy joint
like an Australian officer literally on board a U.S. naval ship at all times? Yeah. With the Star-Spangled Kangaroo on the side of the fucking ship? Yeah, we covered that 2 months ago.
We gave them a nuclear sub. That's how that works.
Yep. And then
the USS Canberra. Fucking Canberra.
Yeah, we covered that on How Do We Miss That? You can go back and look up that clip. So while the Biden administration has made press freedom a key rhetorical commitment and sought to distance itself from Trump's attacks on democracy, oh, goodness gracious, yes, but they both attacked the democracy. Officials have barreled along with the prosecution. One recent report indicated that the FBI has tried to convince journalists to testify against Assange during a U.S. trial. And is that the Craig Murray thing? I think that was.
Yeah. They've used the Rage Against the War song on loop to try to do that.
Right. Progressives and, again, libertarians in Congress and just non-corporate Republicans.
Like the two of them?
Right. Like the three of them that did this. Right. Well, no, it was Gosar. It was that guy from Montana. And it was Rand Paul. And
Rand Paul.
And Massey, who is an independent, not a libertarian, but he's an independent. So they keep, Chip keeps using Chip also works with Jacobin. So, take for that what you will. But Chip is an excellent Assange reporter, and I give him a lot of credit for being on the story, and I credit a lot of people that are on the Assange story when they stay on it. And Kevin wouldn't give him a column.
The New York Times, the Schmartian, Lemire, Der Spetzel, El Pays, even they're all on it.
Yep.
So
exactly right. They've all criticized it. Civil liberties, human rights, press freedom orgs, the ACLU, Amnesty, CPJ. Everyone has called for, in Freedom of the Press Foundation, Reporters Without Borders, repeatedly called for charges. Everybody wants the charges to be dropped, except for the people who it implicates are the ones who are running the government still. And there's enough of them doing that. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and officials in his government have repeatedly raised the issue, including during a recent visit to D.C. Enough is enough, I believe, is what he said to.
Yeah, but wouldn't meet with fucking Stella.
Nope. When she showed up there. Nope. Pass that off to David Shoebridge. So shout out to David Shoebridge, and I hope he eventually becomes prime minister and does not choose to bend the knee. Again, so far the Biden admin has been unmoved by members of Congress, but with increasing opposition from key international allies, mainstream newspapers, press freedom groups, as well as parts of the progressive coalition, that he must depend on for re-election. It's unclear if Biden can continue to carry on with business as usual without facing some kind of consequence. And if he thinks that dropping the charges first of all, he would have to issue a pardon, which isn't even the right move. We need Merrick Garland to drop the charges, really. Otherwise, they're going to run around and say that he was guilty.
Yeah, precedent.
Right.
Well, it's also the precedent that sets, is awful.
Right.
So
I I don't. So we want to see the charges dropped, and it's really lobbying the Justice Department more so than anything. Now, our friend Matt O'Brien, he was just on Misty Winston's recently. I don't know if you know about this guy. He's amazing. He has decided to wear an orange jumpsuit for a year and walk around with this sign in chalk around his neck. And he's gone all around the world and gone around Europe, and he's done radio shows and he's done TV and all kinds of stuff. So I wanted to bring this video that he brought on Instagram about, he says, it feels good and cracks me up to think about the amount of car honks outside Belmarsh is scientific evidence that the Free Assange campaign is growing exponentially stronger. So he has a little something to say. Let's hear what Matt has to say.
One of the drivers in these cars honked his horn after he read my sign and gave me the... And you get that more and more now. The volume is rising. In London, where I'm off to, I've spoken to the campaigners there who always go to Belmarsh Prison, where Julian is every week. And they say that the honks on the horns are increasing. And I just love that. It's like an objective measure of the campaign for Julian Assange.
I can't have the music. It's got American Pie music. Take heart and keep fighting. Free Assange, free the truth, free us all.
Just on my way to London, and one of the drivers in these cars honked his horn after he read my sign.
It's awesome. I mean, he's great. He's a former teacher. You can actually go and listen to the hour that he spent with Misty on her Substack. If you go to mistywinston.substack.com and look for Matt, it's about 2 weeks ago. Every day we publish who her guest is going to be with all their links and a little background and bio. And you can follow him on Instagram and Twitter. I know he's definitely on. I think he's also got a YouTube, but he doesn't really do much over there. One other thing I wanted to give a nod to was Chanda, our friend and Indie Media Award honoree now, by the way, for live streaming and for being awesome. She was at She was at the CPI convention, last minute trip to Portland, see some amazing commentators. Right, so she saw Caleb, and there's Caleb, I believe, in the background right there, as well as a few others.
I see Garland Nixon and
there you go, Scott Ritter, David Rovics, Pasta. Oh, really? I didn't know Pasta was going there. That's badass. I love it.
Pasta was there.
Nice. So Chanda was there. So shout out to Chanda for being there, and thank you. She had a table for Free Assange. So that's not only did she show up, she showed up and set up a table, and that's fucking great. I love her for it. So shout out to her. Shout out to Paula as well as Kendra. Kendra runs the Denver Free Assange. Paula is up in Boston running the Boston Free Assange. All these incredible people are dedicated to the cause, and I love them all dearly for it. So Matt is saying that it feels good about, to feel that there's more momentum happening every day. And you can see that from the number of people that are signing on to the letter. And now the DEA campaign is changing to Free Assange. So hi, everybody.
That's Portland oregano, not Maine.
All right, we got a good number of people here. We got all the regulars in the hizzy that oh goodness, I did not really just say that. I'm sorry. I got to, but Lord, I apologize to all.
What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
Starving pygmies and
God
in South America, South Africa. You see, I even butchered Larry the Cable Guy. So I don't know if anybody knows about Matt.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks.
Yeah, thanks. So Klaus,
you're welcome,
would invite Julian to Davos if he could, but he can't. Yeah, sure. The Dissenter is awesome, Vicky. Yes, totally agree. V.S. Adams. We've got every public claim the U.S. says regarding Assange. Clearly, there are additional matters for why they want to extradite him. Yes, and the biggest one is because of how he exposed the security state multiple times. There's the Vault 7 leaks. There are multiple leaks. It's not just Amber as well. Yeah, shout out to Amber. And Oz was there. I didn't get a picture with Oz and Chanda in it, but Oz was there as well. So shout out to our brother Oz. Thank you so much for this morning. We had a conversation. Helped a lot. So Desert Mantis, a ghost of Henry Kissinger. I can't even imagine who that might be. But boo is all I can say. Boo. Yeah.
Boo.
And over and over and over again. And I'm going to put all the hashtags in. All right. We need to free Julian Assange and drop the charges, and journalism is not a crime. Oh, that statement is from 2010. Oh, that's funny, Golden Monarch. Thank you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Someone knows their SpongeBob time frame.
SpongeBob SquarePants. Yes. 2010, 2011. That's what you said there. Okay. So, yes, Oz was there too. Bunch of people. Dave Burt. Man, this thing too slow to load? No. Hopefully not. Yes, but we got to get Assange out of Belmarsh. That's Dave Burt over on the Rockfins. We've got one Jim R over on the Rumble. So we've got everybody over. We've got people everywhere. Beautiful. All right. There was one more part of this story. I have to get back to it. Sorry, everyone. Let's go back to that, which is this. Next Saturday afternoon, if you are in the DC area, sign up for this. You can also watch it on a live stream. And it's the Belmarsh Tribunal. And it's not necessarily a lot of people that we like, support, or know that are there, but it's important. I'll just read this out. The extradition against Julian Assange is now entering its final phase, and the international pressure for his freedom is mounting. From presidents and prime ministers to Nobel Peace Prize winners, the international community is crying out against the injustice of Assange's prosecution and its implication for press freedom worldwide. On December 9th, the world's leading journalists, lawyers, and human rights defenders will gather at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. as witnesses to the Biden administration's crackdown on free speech and the First Amendment. Join them. It's not too late to stand on the right side of history. Register now to attend the tribunal, either in person or follow the proceedings online. And Kevin Gostola, by the way, said that he would do something to try to get some kind of live stream going. So this is at 2 p.m. on Friday. The co-chairs, I'm not fans of either one of them, but I'm fans of what they're doing here and what they're getting people together. But it's Ryan Grimm and Amy Goodman. Yes. But we've got Marjorie.
Pick two other people.
Well,
two other people would be nice. Like put Kiriakou instead.
Well, we've got Kiriakou and Rebecca Vincent, and we've got Abby Martin down there as well. We got Marjorie Cohn from Truth Out, as well as some other folks, some lawyers, and Ewan McCaskill from formerly Guardian. I believe he worked with Julian, possibly. I mean, there's been so many attendees and people who have testified at this tribunal. This is like the third or fourth one already.
Hey, maybe you might be able to buy Ryan Grimm's book while you're there.
That would be cool.
You know?
Yes, if you can burn it for sure. But we don't burn books around here.
No.
That's a whole other story.
Advise doing
that's
that.
Moms for Liberty. By the way, freaking icky. If you dude.
No,
What?
We don't burn books here, but we might advise you to use them as toilet paper if things get tough. You know?
But man, we talked about Moms for Liberty and the 1776 agenda and all they were doing to try to influence school board and school legislation, and school curriculum. And as it turns out, their vice president, he got into a little bit of trouble this weekend. Something having to do with swinging, and there were cops involved, and it was, look into it. It's a pretty salacious story, but it's pretty interesting that the people who want to control what the the curriculum that are teaching all of our children, and specifically trying to muddy down or trying to soften what we did as a country with regard to slavery. It's just funny how they behave in private, and once in a while when their dirty laundry is aired out, how hypocritical they all appear. So
holy shnikes.
Yeah, that's what I saw this morning. Sorry, when I saw this whole thing about a swinging thing, and I was like, oh, hey now. And yeah. So our friend, and we're going to do another article now from Indie Media Award honoree Kit Klarenberg, and you have to say that name 3 times slowly. Kit Klarenberg from the Grayzone and Mid-Press and several other publications. He published something yesterday that I found pretty, or 2 days ago. Freedom of Information request reveals that Bellingcat, we all know about BellingCAUGHT, collusion with Western intelligence. And I don't think this is really much of a surprise, but to see it in the emails, to see it in, and this was picked up by ScheerPost and republished, and ScheerPost, oh, by the way, also is an indie media. ScheerPost, the Grayzone, Kit Klarenberg, this is a triple hit right here. So I was like, oh, this is great. Exactly. So an extraordinary email uncovered by a Dutch researcher under Freedom of Information laws confirms what many have long charged, that Bellingcat, the open source collective widely cited by mainstream journalists and loved by the CIA, collaborates directly with Western intelligence agencies, even though they claim to be independent. And that's where this goes. So this is an article about Bellingcat by ARS Electronica. And Kit writes in the Grayzone, and this is somewhat long, but it's important to understand. And I actually had a AI reader, and we'll stop and we'll comment on some of this throughout the way. But an email sent in 2020, November 2020. Now, this is during COVID lockdown censorship by an officer within Amsterdam's National Coordinator for Security and Counterterrorism, shows that a Bellingcat investigation was intentionally shared with the agency prior to publication so as to assist the Dutch spooks in shaping media strategies and messaging following its release. So we know this is going to come out. Help us figure out how to deal with it. That's basically the revealing communication is irrefutable proof that the cozy relationship, the self-styled independent investigative collective of researchers and investigators and citizen journalists, as they dub themselves, enjoys with Western intelligence services. They have a cozy relationship, Bellingcat and Western intel services. Right? I don't think this is much of a surprise to anyone. Actually, if you look at back a year and a half ago, the Dissident, who is one of an old INN member, who a legacy, he's still around. He doesn't publish anything, but he still shares on Twitter at leftist_news12 is his handle on Twitter. But what he had this a while ago, that Bellingcat is just a propaganda factory for intel. But in the message, which is marked high importance, the undisclosed author explained that Bellingcat would soon publish research amounting to deeply libelous attack on independent journalists and researchers who challenged the mainstream narrative surrounding Malaysia Airlines Flight 17. Interesting. Right? This is like 3 years ago. So this is, as such, the Dutch intelligence officer wrote, quote, "It's probably smart to put together interdepartmental wording for this already." That's
get
weird.
our story straight.
Interdepartmental. Wait, how are they still even in the same department? Because the article highlights several sides, MH17, but also COVID-19. Safe and effective, but it's probably wise to wait and see if A, the mainstream media picks it up, B, from which angle they pick it up and highlight it, either being the crash or COVID, and see from this angle, then to determine the wording and therefore which department is in the lead. D, coordinate the language as much as possible interdepartmentally. This is unbelievable. So basically they're saying, yes, we need to get our story straight. We need to figure out multiple scenarios, what could happen, and then game plan according to that. Hey, Bellingcat. And then they're going to release some information.
This is all in Dutch.
And it's all in Dutch, right.
Hilarious. Like, what is so valuable?
Die mainstream media het oppikken. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So the article in question, which is entitled, quote, the GRU's MH17 Disinformation Operations Part 1, the Bonanza Media Project.
That's a mouthful of a movie. Man, Roger Ebert's going to have a tough time getting that one out.
Yep.
The GRU's MH7 Disinformation Operations Part 1.
Just Part 1.
What? Just Part 1. The Bonanza Media Project. What we're going to have fucking...
It would probably just be called...
shooters and...
It would probably just be called the Bonanza Media Project, I would guess, as the main title. But anyway, it was framed as an investigation into a now defunct independent media venture named Bonanza Media, which was established by Russian journalist Yana Yerlashova with the help of freelance Dutch, right? Which, with the help of freelance Dutch researcher Max van der Werf. Now, much of Bonanza's work challenged Western assertions that separatist fighters in Donbass shot down MH17 with a Buck surface-to-air missile system provided to them by the Russian military. Right, that's what the narrative was, and they were saying, no, that's not true. Ukrainian officials began pushing that narrative, citing audio recordings they claimed to have intercepted alongside material purportedly found on social media implicating the separatists, even before Malaysia Airlines publicly announced it had lost contact with the plane.
Of course, Ukrainian officials would say something like that. It's Russia.
I'm going to repeat that they blamed the Donbass before Malaysia officials publicly announced that they had lost contact with the plane. They jumped the gun and
how
let
do you
it out.
motherfucking know? Like,
hello?
You know?
And oh, wow, Bellingcat happened to surreptitiously launch just days before the downing of MH17. And it came to prominence by immediately seizing on the deluge of carefully curated and potentially falsified information. With amazing speed, the organization claimed to have precisely mapped out exactly what happened that fateful day and exactly how it occurred. Despite its relative inexperience and opaque organizational structure, its findings were accepted without a shred of scrutiny by Western journalists, lawmakers, pundits, and the official Dutch MH17 tribunal, which concluded last November. That's amazing.
Oh
like,
my God. Stop your
fucking lying. Everyone. Like, it's wow. I mean, it's really stunning. So,
yep.
Bonanza's film, MH17 Call for Justice, right? This was a real thing, features interviews with witnesses on the ground that day and Malaysian government officials who did not accept the official story, but doesn't rule out the possibility of Russian culpability altogether. How?
Wow.
How? However, we have to get Stephen A. Smith going. However, right? The documentary presented a substantial challenge to Bellingcat's version of events, which also happened to align neatly with the official narrative. Amazing. In 2020, Bonanza also published leaked documents confidentially submitted to the tribunal. This included Dutch intelligence files recording that while many Ukrainian Buck systems had been spotted in eastern Ukraine, Russian equivalents were nowhere to be seen. So tell me how it was the Russians. So tell me how it was the Russians when the only systems that were there that were spotted at all were Ukrainian. Evidently.
Scum!
Yeah, thanks, Keith. Evidently, Bellingcat and its founder, Elliot Higgins, who has me blocked on Twitter because I have embarrassed him and I subscribe and support the Grayzone. And he has made it his life's work to take down Max Blumenthal and the Grayzone. And he's got the help of the intel community to try to do it. Anyway, Elliot Higgins and Bellingcat were displeased with their results. So as Dutch freelance journalist Eric Vanderbeek wrote in 2020, quote, because it was impossible for Bellingcat to discredit Van der Werf on the basis of well-researched content featured on his blog and recent documentary, Elliot Higgins opted to wage a campaign of misinformation. Wow, go figure. Bellingcat waged a misinformation campaign? Get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
I want to give a special shout out to Fred Edward, back hopefully and feeling better. So hope you're doing better.
Yeah.
All right. So Bellingcat's 2020 investigation into the group strongly insinuated that Bonanza was being run by Russia's GRU. Russian scum! Let's hear it again. All right. Heavily implied that their investigations...
Scum!
Yep. That heavily implied that their investigations were edited by the agency's operatives before publication and suggested that its contributors were on the Kremlin's payroll. Of course. They claim that their conclusions were based on emails from the mailboxes of... Wait, this is how they out themselves. They say that their conclusions were based on emails from the mailboxes of two senior GRU officials or officers obtained by Russian hacktivist group and independently authenticated by us. We checked we checked it ourselves, and what do you know? It's true. Huh, how about that?
Yeah.
We authenticated it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dave Burt, for the $2 tip over on the Rock Fins. Appreciate that. That's unbelievable. So we authenticated it. Oh, yeah, it must be true. Strict British libel laws may have prevented the group from making direct allegations to this effect, but the Dutch media had no such qualms, and the investigation triggered a wave of smears in major local publications. One daily newspaper even headlined as a fact that the MH17 blogger directed by Russian Secret Service, even though totally not true. Another which directly asserted that Van der Werf worked under the orders of Russian military service, GRU, is currently being sued by the researcher regarding the unproven claim, which they should be. Strikingly, though, throughout this period, not a single mainstream journalist, of course, questioned how Bellingcat acquired these highly sensitive trove of documents upon which its investigation depended. On top of confidential GRU emails, how would it get access to that? Bellingcat somehow acquired phone data showing calls between purported Russian intelligence officials and cell tower data tracking their movements, which it claimed pinpointed their locations to GRU headquarters in Moscow. Okay, this is the biggest facepalm because none of this information is remotely open source.
Yeah.
And therefore, since it wasn't shared publicly, it can't be independently verified.
Right.
We said it ourselves. We verified it ourselves. Hilarious. By the way, 1G Mars, no, it's not swinging Democrats. It was swinging Republicans. The Moms for Liberty people are hardcore right-wing evangelical Republicans that had the whole swingers thing. Getting back to that story in between. Sorry. Oddly, in one passage, Bellingcat stated that it is not clear, quote, this is unbelievable again, it is not clear who requested or suggested changes to a Bonanza article it alleged were made after the piece was submitted to the GRU before publication. They just made the whole thing up.
Yeah.
One might think ascertaining this would be simple given the vast amount of highly incriminating evidence to which Bellingcat had exclusive access. I love Kit. So tongue-in-cheek. Well, perhaps British libel laws were a deterrent to accusing the GRU, but why would this be the case that the material was authentic and defending it in court was no issue? There's that too. So, there's 8 ways that they tell on themselves with this shit. And that's why I'm cracking up. Nicole Vance, I can see this message. Hello. You are over at the Indie Left channel. Most people, I believe, are chatting over at the INN channel. So that's why you can't see most people. And you're seeing the restream bot.
Yeah.
This is also what happens. That the MH17 verdict undermines Bellingcat, which is, again, hilarious. The newly released NCTV email strongly suggests Bellingcat's investigation into Bonanza was the product of a Western intelligence information operation. What a surprise. Intended to steal...
And Western intelligence? Shit. What is this?
Actually, Bonanza was trying to out it. Right, Western Intel was going after Bonanza. I
know, we're old. It's okay.
Yeah, okay. So now I hope YouTube doesn't hit us for some kind of copyright thing for that.
You did YouTube. It perfect. You got the perfect representation of the theme song.
Well, they knew what I meant. Anyway.
Yep.
Sure enough, Russian nationals Igor Girkin and Sergei Dubinsky and Donbass separatist Leonard Karchenko were convicted in absentia for the murder of MH17's 283 passengers and 15 crew members. The court ruling, they arranged the transfer of the Buck surface-to-air missile system that reportedly struck the plane. So they actually used this evidence to convict people without them even being in the room or having a chance to defend themselves in absentia. That's also stunning and amazing. Clowns. Meanwhile, the only defendant to seek legal representation and give testimony during the trial, Oleg Pulatov, was acquitted on all charges. The court found there was no indication he was involved in obtaining the missile system, that he could have prevented its use, or that he was involved in transporting it to another location after the incident. Prosecutors announced that they will not appeal the verdict. So he's getting off. But the other three, they now have their fall guy. They've got their patsy. They've got their guilty person they can point to and say, they're the ones that downed the plane. It wasn't Ukraine. What do you mean?
Yeah.
The response by the normally brash Higgins to the Dutch court's judgment was uncharacteristically muted. That's nice. That's a nice way to put it. In an otherwise self-congratulatory Twitter thread, he merely noted that Pulatov is acquitted. The rest are found guilty. There was no explanation for why the defendant was found innocent, nor any analysis of the ruling's potential implications for Bellingcat's MH17 investigations. Not really a surprise that he doesn't want to focus on the fact that his entire operation got exposed for being a fraud. Higgins, well, he's paid to spread it. It's not just that he's lying. He's intentionally misleading people. It's bad.
Oh my God, no way.
So, Elliot and his crack squad of laptop jockeys were understandably embarrassed on these counts. Yes, thank you, Kit. All right. Yeah. Not the least because the Bellingcat chief repeatedly mocked Pulatov and his lawyers during the tribunal, suggesting that his conviction was a fait accompli and sneering when the defendant testified accusations of responsibility for MH17 resulted in adverse personal consequences for him. What a surprise.
Yeah.
The June 2020 Bellingcat investigation lambasted Pulatov's testimony, suggesting that his defense strategy was unlikely to win the court's strategies. Sure.
Sympathies.
So, sympathies, that too.
Funny.
Right. Well, he won the sympathies. All right. And then here's how this nonsense, they completely make this stuff up. Criminal organizations run by these people that then they run with this narrative. You know, this is exactly the kind of stuff that Media Matters we talked about last week. They're being sued for inventing an entire problem and then screaming bloody murder about what's about to happen.
What's your source, sir?
My
source?
What?
Imagination.
We validated it. This was from 2019.
Sure.
Talking about...
Where did you get that from? Hamilton 69?
You might as well have. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Okay. Anyway, so there's Leonid Karchenko. Oh, he's the one. Yeah. He's the guilty party. These three. Oh, Pulatov, but he's not guilty. Karchenko and Dubinsky got, Alexander Semenov. I've heard that name before. I've heard a lot of these names.
Semenov, yes.
Yes. So Bellingcat's confirmed collusion with NCTV raises obvious questions about whether the organization's relentless attacks on journalists and researchers who do not toe the official national security line are also directly coordinated with and on behalf of Western intelligence agencies. I think we know the answer to that one, dude. In many cases, Bellingcat's attacks have real-world consequences for its targets. And let's take a look at a few. For example, Bellingcat has, over many years, tried to destroy the career of MIT Emeritus Professor Theodore Postol, who questioned the official investigations into alleged chemical strikes in Syria, which we know that the white helmets were invented and that somebody certainly did cause some kind of attack there, but who did it and how and why is a big question. And it likely was not people they say did it, according to all the investigators and the special rapporteur. Aramate did a whole investigation with the guy from the UN. What's his name? Jose, I can't think of his name now. Bostado. They basically threw him off the investigation because he did not give the result that the UN wanted. But he's like, I can't help it. That this is what I'm following the facts. They didn't want him to follow the facts, and they took him off the investigation. That's what happened when it came to Syria and the white helmets. Throughout the Syrian conflict, Bellingcat published investigations blaming government forces for chemical weapons attacks, yet typically within hours of them allegedly happening. How did they know so quickly that it was Syria? These findings were invariably based in part on material provided to the organization by British intelligence constructs on the ground, such as the bogus humanitarian group known as the White Helmets, like I just said. In the immediate aftermath of the notorious 2018 Duma incident, and by the way, Eva Bartlett has done extensive research on this as well, Vanessa Bealey, which OPCW whistleblowers suggest was staged, and that's who I was talking about. Jose Bustani was the lead OPCW whistleblower. All right. Higgins tweeted an exclusive photo of one of the cylinders purportedly used in the strike. The post was abruptly deleted, though, because perhaps the White Helmets subsequently shared a photo of the same site in which the same cylinder was in a different position. How could that happen if they weren't tampering with evidence or they didn't do it themselves and plant shit? That was proof positive that the scene had been manipulated by those staging it. Dissident British academics who've helped expose Duma and other chemical weapon strikes in Syria as opposition executed false flags in which British intelligence was frequently complicit have likewise been relentlessly targeted by Bellingcat. They are an attack dog for the intel community, masked as a cutout, as an independent news agency, as an independent research gathering agency that even organizations like the MH17 Tribunal to try to find someone guilty for what happened to that plane will even credit. It's scary and dangerous and wrong. All right. Nicole, thank you for resubscribing. People have been unsubscribed all the time. You know what? You were a paid subscriber to INN's channel when we got demonetized. When we had our monetization taken away, that might have been why when they unsubscribed you potentially. But thank you for popping back over. Elsewhere, Bellingcat fabricated and misrepresented evidence to smear independent Bulgarian journalist Dilyana, and I'm not even going to attempt that last name, as another potential GRU asset. They see Russians everywhere. Meanwhile, the organization has played a lead role in disseminating and verifying dubious, if not outright fraudulent material and claims related to the Ukraine conflict throughout its duration. Investigations by the Grayzone strongly suggest that Bellingcat operatives were directly implicated in a Ukrainian intelligence operation gone wrong, which Kiev's forces killed. That's interesting. I don't remember that. That was in April. I didn't know that.
Okay.
But CIA veterans have openly praised Bellingcat, we know, for stating publicly what spy agencies cannot. So they basically, it's a leak agency, just like The Intercept, by the way, Ryan Grimm. Yeah, we see you too. In a December 2020 Foreign Policy article entitled Bellingcat Can Say What U.S. Intelligence Can't, literally, the CIA's former deputy chief of operations for Europe and Eurasia was quoted as saying, quote, I don't want to be too dramatic, but we love this. Whenever we had to talk to our liaison partners, instead of trying to have things cleared or worry about classification issues, you could just reference their work. Unquote. That's so they're a British organization that somehow has enough information about confidential classified CIA stuff that they could reference it, and that was not considered a problem by anyone at CIA? I wonder why. Accordingly, leaked files exposing the Internal Workings and Integrity Initiative, which is a British intelligence black propaganda operation tasked with ginning up conflict with Russia to pad the UK's defense budget, were rife with references to Bellingcat. What a surprise! As an internal document which describes one of the group's goals as increasing the impact of effective organizations currently analyzing Russian activities notes. Well, we already do this with Bellingcat. Like, right out of the UK defense stuff. The Integrity Initiative, okay? So, as a result of such excerpts, this journalist repeatedly asked Higgins about the nature of his and his organization's relationships with the Integrity Initiative. Though initially evasive, in March 2020, Higgins finally denied any association in an email that concluded with an ominous threat. And here's what Higgins literally wrote to Kit Klarenberg. I'm not sure how I can explain this more clearly. Bellingcat has never worked with the Integrity Initiative, nor were we contacted by them about any proposal. The funny thing is, your shitty reporting on the matter had proven quite useful to us. Looking forward to you finding out how. Try not to feel bad, but I guess I should thank you for your absolute idiocy. Almost 4 years later, this journalist is still waiting to learn what Higgins and his collaborators in Western spy agencies have cooked up to make me feel bad, given the confirmed interest of British intel in sabotaging this outlet and the crazed allegations to me put to me by the counter-terror police who detained him in London earlier this May. He may have already made good on this threat, and I think that that's what he was talking about, having him detained when he came back into the country. And of course, douchebag Higgins and Bellingcat were approached for comment, but they had nothing to say because they're chickens and they're stooges for the intel community and they're assholes. And we shun you. You shunned. We do not like you.
Yeah.
Fuck Bellingcat is all I can say. So next, I would be remiss if I did not talk about something having to do with Gaza, and it's one that is we talked about last week, and it's just an update and a short update near and dear to my heart, and that's the journalists that are being murdered by Israel. So People's Dispatch published the other day, and again, this was on the 27th, and today I saw that the 74th journalist was murdered. This is a graphic photo. That's literally his bulletproof vest soaked in blood of a murdered journalist as they're walking him to his funeral. Oh, by the way, the journalist is right there on the gurney.
Stretcher.
So the world was waiting in cautious anticipation amid the 4-day pause, which ended up being 6 in hostilities in Gaza, giving Palestinians a brief respite from the incessant Israeli airstrikes, which resumed as soon as the ceasefire, quote unquote, ended, even though it never really ended. Israel did not cease its bombing of the enclave from October 7th when it declared war on Hamas, following the surprise Al-Aqsa flood operation launched by Palestinian resistance groups to start of the pause on November 24th. In these nearly 7 weeks, over 15,000 Palestinians were killed and over 33,000 have been injured. The number of missing is still around 6,800, many of whom are presumed dead or still trapped under the rubble. And half of those children. Amid those genocidal attacks on Palestinians, Palestinian Journalist Syndicate reported that over 63 journalists have been killed. Again, now we're up to 74, and I think that also may include the Reuters journalist that was murdered in Lebanon, but not just journalists. It's also their families in a lot of cases. The CPJ, Committee to Protect Journalists, has stated that the last month was the deadliest for attacks on journalists since it started keeping records in 1992. This is repeating from last week, but it needs to continue to be said because nobody seems to be doing anything to stop this from happening. Many press freedom advocates have argued that the killing of journalists and communicators in Gaza appears to be part of Israel's sinister efforts to prevent the truth about its brutal attacks from reaching the world. I don't think that that's really much of a question at this point. In this context, a group of people's media outlets from across the world issued a statement expressing solidarity with Palestinian journalists and demanding a definitive end to what constitutes a grave violation of press freedom, international law, and fundamental human rights, which we know Israel doesn't give a flying fuck about.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Bibi. Fuck you, Knesset. Fuck you, Ben-Gvir. Fuck you, all of them. Stop this genocide. Knesset.
Silent K?
Yes. No, it's not silent.
3Ks even.
It's not really a silent. Well, we are outraged at the murder of over 60 of our Palestinian colleagues